David stood in the doorway of the house he had lived in for 11 years, holding an eviction notice with a hand that wouldn't stop trembling. Boxes were stacked behind him. His wife was in the hospital 2 miles away, hooked up to machines he couldn't pronounce the names of, and he had exactly $43 left in his bank account. He remembers standing there thinking one clear, quiet thought. I have nothing left to fight with. Not a dramatic thought, not even a desperate one, just tired. Bone tired, soul tired, the kind of tired that comes after months of trying so hard to hold everything together that you forget what it even felt like to hope. He sat down on the front step of that house, the notice still in his hand, and for the first time in years, he didn't ask God for anything. He just said, I don't know what to do anymore. What happened over the following 3 weeks is something David still can't talk about without his voice breaking. This is his story. 2 years before that moment on the front step, David had a good life. Nothing extravagant, but steady. He ran a small auto repair shop he'd built from nothing, the kind of place where regulars knew him by name and he knew their cars by sound before they even pulled into the lot. He and his wife, Renee, had been married for 19 years. They weren't rich, but they were happy. And to David, that had always felt like more than enough. Then everything started falling at once. First, the highway construction rerouted traffic away from his shop for over a year. Business dropped by more than half. He took out a loan to stay afloat. Certain things would bounce back once construction finished. They didn't. Customers had found other shops. The loan became a weight he couldn't lift. Then Renee got sick. It started small, fatigue she chalked up to stress, until one day she collapsed at the grocery store and didn't wake up for almost a full minute. The diagnosis that followed hit them like a truck. A serious heart condition, one that required surgery, ongoing treatment, medication that cost more than David's monthly mortgage payment. He closed the shop to be with her. He sold his truck. He sold tools he'd owned for 20 years, tools that had been like extensions of his own hands. He did everything a man could possibly do. But medical bills don't care how hard you try. They just keep coming. Within 8 months, David had gone from a steady business owner to a man drowning in debt. Watching his wife fight for her life in a hospital bed while their savings disappeared and the bank started sending letters he was too afraid to open. The eviction notice was the final letter he couldn't avoid. He remembers driving to the hospital that evening after finding it taped to his door, sitting in the parking lot outside, unable to make himself go inside and tell Renee. How could he tell a woman fighting for her own heartbeat that they were about to lose their home too? He sat there for almost an hour, staring at the hospital entrance, feeling like the ground beneath his entire life had simply disappeared. That's when he drove home instead, sat down on that front step, and ran completely out of strength. David had grown up in church. His faith had never disappeared entirely, but somewhere along the way, especially during those brutal 8 months, it had quietly slipped into the background. He'd pray sometimes, short and rushed, more like checking a box than reaching out to someone who actually cared. But sitting on that step, something different happened. He says he didn't have the energy left to pray a proper prayer. He didn't have eloquent words. He just closed his eyes, leaned his head back against the doorframe, and let out a long, shaky breath. God, he whispered, I don't even know what to ask you for anymore. I don't have the strength to fight this. I don't have the strength to walk into that hospital and tell Renee we're losing the house. I don't have anything left, so I'm just going to sit here. If you're real and if you still see me, I need you to carry this because I can't. He says it wasn't a prayer full of faith. It was a prayer of surrender, of a man finally admitting, out loud, that he had reached the absolute end of what he could handle on his own. He sat there for a long time after that. The sun went down, the porch light flickered on automatically, and David just sat in the quiet, empty in a way he had never been empty before, but strangely, not entirely alone in that emptiness either. The first sign came the next morning, in a way so ordinary that David almost missed it entirely. His phone rang. It was Pastor Rick, from the small church he and Renee used to attend regularly before life got too overwhelming to keep showing up. David hadn't spoken to him in over a year. He almost didn't answer. David, Pastor Rick said, I don't know why, but